Okay, Dee, how about some tips on how we can clean up?
Sure. I've got kinds of equipment that we use regularly. This is the most common syringe that we use, and many others. It's a pistol grip syringe. We take these completely apart and boil them. The joints, the rubber joints, we lubricate with a little bit of cooking oil. A spray oil is probably my favorite. And put those back together and store them in a dry, clean place. On the automatics, if we suck a number of loads of hot boiling water until we've gotten all the insides completely clean, never ever use any soap. Leave them full of water, and I have in the microwave one that I've already done. Wrap them in paper towels, wet paper towels, inside a Ziploc bag, and microwave them on high for about 5 minutes. All the water inside will evaporate or boil and boil out. There'll be just a few residual drops. Leave them wrapped up. Store these in a freezer. Freezer will be any mold growth from any residual moisture, and it's always a nice, dry, clean place. Before we get ready to use them, they're going to come out cold. We need to make sure that our sterilization is one more time. We'll boil a little water in a microwave oven and rinse our syringes about 3 times to make sure that we've got all that blown off, and double check to make sure that our transfer needles, in fact, we wind up with nice sterile syringes and then screw up a lot of vaccines with dirty transfer needles. And I use the same process. I'll wrap the transfer needle in some wet paper towel, put them in a container, and run a microwave in no more than 30 seconds or so, just enough to boil the water around that needle, renders it sterile, and then store it in a nice, clean, dry place.
Okay, Dee, we're ready to head out to the chute. How do we pack up?
Well, you got the first big important part. Is a nice styrofoam cooler and a frozen ice pack. We've selected carefully vaccines appropriate for our use. Here's a modified live IVR. Here's our 7-way. And in this case, we also have a Pasteurella vaccine. I have a sterile transfer needle for moving those around the bottle, and I've got an appropriate selection of needles.
How do we know how many needles to take?
That's a good question. We need to calculate 1 needle for every 10 to 15 animals.
Okay.
And extra animals, because if we contaminate that needle between the very first animal, we need a new one. Contaminated and damaged needles just need to be replaced before they're used. We need to use a new needle on every bottle if we happen to re-enter, and we need to have the size appropriate for the animal that we're working with. 1 and 1.5 inch needles for our intramuscular injections. I use a 1 inch 18 gauge for our light calves and a 1.5 inch for our larger animals. For our sub-Q injections, I'm either going to use an 18 in our light calves and a 16 in our heavier calves, like over 500 pounds, 5/8 or 3/4 of an inch. I also have our syringes that we prepared earlier. We've got those in our unit. Make sure I review the label instructions, withdrawals, any precautions. All our vaccines have a 21 gauge day withdrawal unless they have oil adjuvant, and then they're 60.
But Dee, can't we just go ahead and mix our vaccine up right here?
No. Never mix up more than 1 bottle at a time. We're just not in that big a hurry. Quality, not quantity, is what our objectives.
Great. We're ready to head to the chute.
Let's go. Okay, so we're here. We've got the right vaccine. You've got a sterile transfer needle. We review the label to make sure that we've got the proper dose. We understand the withdrawal times and any other precautions. Now we're going to mix this first by inserting the needle in the diluent, sterile diluent, and then into the desiccated vaccine at the bottom, and let those two. Put the diluent over the top, and the vacuum will suck it down into the other bottle. Once those are mixed, and we mix these immediately prior to using the vaccines, we attach them to our vaccination syringe. We've attached the proper needle. I'm going to empty this and suck the vaccine down into the syringe. So I've properly loaded a 2 milliliter dose. This is a subcutaneous vaccine, so I slide with my 3/4 inch needle. I lift the skin. You can see the tented technique. Inject the vaccine and withdraw. Well, we're ready for the next calf.
Dee, some other information that we need to record in addition to the dosage, the vaccine, and so forth is the expiration date, the serial number, and the lot number located on the box.
Good point. I'll record those for our BQA records and to have for the next owner of these cattle.
Given that the animal responds, you've injected this appropriately, this should be a successful vaccination.
We've covered all our bases. One last thing is remember that we reviewed the safety precautions. Safety is everything.